Hi guys, Mark and Alex here in the paddock after Saturday at the Italian Grand Prix. Alex, we know Saturday's all about qualifying, so where should we start?
Well, I think we'll start at the very front of the grids. Another McLaren 1-2. A really important result, I think, for them, most specifically, but also for Formula 1 and the World Championship. Because, you know, statement result winning in Zandvoort, but a very different track here in Monza, and also a track that Red Bull historically has gone really well at. So, yeah, I think McLaren should be feeling pretty ecstatic, but equally, there's just such huge question marks over the race result tomorrow because of the tarmac, or the asphalt rather, and all the changes here that Lando Norris saying in the press conference, Max will still be behind us very quickly, qualifying down in 7th. But yeah, I don't know, what did you make of particularly of Norris? Because Andrea Stella, McLaren team principal, saying this result, more than things like upgrades, down to drivers just nailing things when it mattered.
The one thing that I think summed it up for me was that he was about to get out of that car. He was gutted because he thought he'd put quite a bad lap in, and I don't think that was performative. The way he was speaking it felt like he thought I had a shot at pole here and I've lost it, which speaks volumes of where he's at. He's beating that field and still thinks he can get more out of the car, thinks he should get more out of the car. So to be where he is, and it's quite tight, that top 6, but he is actually clear of the rest, isn't he, by some distance. So, you know, he's got Piastri alongside him tomorrow. We don't need to go over the starts we've seen when he's been on pole. That has to improve, I think, because if Piastri does get past him off the start, it creates this whole team orders conversation that the team won't want, the drivers won't want, and that would just be an issue that maybe we don't need, but we might get.
Well, I can tell you right now that conversation is already happening, because it was happening in the press conference. Our good friend Nate Saunders from ESPN brought it up. I said to him, stirring the pot immediately. And essentially, what I thought was interesting was Piastri had a slight resigned look when it came up, but the message at the moment is we're free to race right now, but we're going to discuss this. And the drivers, they're usually drivers briefing on Sunday, and certain elements have already been discussed. But I think what's critical now is Red Bull's qualifying result, because if this qualifying result were to be repeated in the race, McLaren 1-2 with Piastri ahead and Max Verstappen down in 7th, from how I'm reading it, how I understand it, they have to reverse that result, because such a result would mean Lando Norris could potentially win the world title if you were to win all races at the end of the year. Right now, it doesn't really matter. You need Max Verstappen to have a retirement, or
or a weekend like this to a degree, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, a bit of a shocker. But like I said, I think the race runs cloud that, and we'll come on to that with Red Bull. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. Especially going back to the starts, still so many question marks about that. Yeah. Lando Norris saying that the prospect looks better, which was nice and vague in the press conference. What was interesting was Andrea Stella, and actually when it came to Zandvoort, the drivers did nothing wrong. It was all about what we told them to do with the tyre prep. So yeah, great to work there. But yeah, what did you make of Red Bull today?
Well, it seemed to catch everyone, not least Red Bull, by surprise, just how off the pace. Not even earlier in the qualifying, they were closer, weren't they? And then in that third session, they just got absolutely nowhere near them. And there weren't really any reasons for that. I know you were doing more of the media post than me. I don't think there was much of an explanation. I don't think they particularly know where it happened. I thought Helmut Marko gave a very interesting quote, didn't he, where he said Adrian Newey's not involved anymore. That might be a factor. I'm sure everyone would be delighted at Red Bull to have heard that, but I don't know if it is that. I think it's sometimes it's just set up, or there might be a temper change. It's just any little tweak like that. But all is not well there at the moment, is it? Especially when Max would have crossed the line already furious and then been told that it's a McLaren 1-2.
Yeah, it's interesting considering that things are sort of quieting down on the Red Bull management war front. That Newey exit making things more difficult for Red Bull, coming up a fair bit in things that we're hearing, and I would say that's coming very much from a certain camp, Verstappen camp within Red Bull. And you can kind of get it, they have this super team in effect, and I'm going to mix my metaphors, the bands split up and things are going differently. So yeah, it's interesting, but again, I'm still, as much as I think for Formula 1 and for a good championship, kind of need McLaren to win 1-2 tomorrow and for Red Bull to struggle, but I'm not convinced that's the case because of what we saw in FP2. Big graining on the tyres. There was some suggestion actually from Helmut Marko that as more rubber goes down and the track evolves, that will be less of an issue. But Pirelli saying actually it's still there. We don't really know. There's just a lot of uncertainty going on in terms of strategy. Pirelli are convinced it's still a one-stopper. The teams are telling them it's going to be a two-stopper, but I think Pirelli are a bit of down. But yeah, so effectively, Red Bull historically very good on things like that. Strong on Friday, seemed to have a slight edge on everyone when it came to the graining and the average lap times on the medium tyres. So big hope still for Max Verstappen. But another little curiosity and one worth paying attention to is something that, again, Andrea Stella said in his briefing just a few minutes ago. He thinks that Red Bull have made, in his words, compromises when it comes to their rear and rear wing downforce levels package. Effectively, the car isn't in like ideal configuration for one lap in qualifying, and maybe, I think Max Verstappen's alluded to this as well, that will help them when it comes to in-race tyre wear, which is ultimately going to be critical.
It is that other thing though, isn't it? Yes, they might be better tomorrow, but he's got quite a few fast cars ahead of him to get past if he's going to get on the podium, if he's going to battle for the win. We know he's mega, we know he's quick, but so the Ferraris, so the Mercs, none of those ahead of him they're all there on merit, if you like, aren't they? There's not a surprise name ahead of him. So he has got it all to do tomorrow, and it would be a mega drive if he then went on and beat Lando tomorrow, wouldn't it? Completely,
and of course he's exposed massively at turn 1. We know things can happen here, have gone wrong in the past. But what I think is interesting, and I know various people, including some of our colleagues, very bored by tyre chat, but actually what we saw in FP2 and what seems to be carrying on means this is going to be such a tyre management affair that if anyone pushes that a little bit too hard or risks at the wrong time, then they'll suddenly tumble down on pace. So therefore, we could actually, in a sort of reverse logic kind of way, see quite an entertaining race, because previously here, the DRS trains and things being so powerful on the straights, it's been very hard for overtaking unless there's been a clear pace discrepancy. And you could get that with the graining on the tyres.
I'm going to go tyre chat. I'm going to debut on tyre chat. I might be completely wrong. Didn't Toto Wolff say the reason McLaren are so much better is because they are better? They're just basically lighter on the tyres. So he seems to think that is the only reason they're not the only reason, but the reason they seem to be able to do what they did today was mainly because they're tired.
Massively. I think Andrea Stella spoke about that, and also we'll come and talk about Lewis Hamilton saying he was furious, thinking that his car was good enough for pole. He ends up P6, but how you treated the tyres, how you set the car up through qualifying, and also how you judged what's quite a significant track evolution factor, that all became critical. And McLaren just seemed to nail that. They just sort of, as they put on the different sets of tyres, they just seem to gain knowledge, gain understanding, and gain time. Everybody else seems to be a bit more hit and miss. Like Max Verstappen, amazing on used tyres in Q2, but suddenly saying you had no grip in Q3. So does look like McLaren fundamentally nailed that on the tyres. But what did you make of Lewis's reaction to not being where he expected to be?
We know Lewis is always honest, isn't he? But I don't know if pole was within his grip. I know they're much closer again, Merck. I actually think you look at that grid there, it doesn't look like it. They seem to be the closest to McLaren during qualifying, didn't they? And Lewis went fastest yesterday. But he won't have liked that given what we're about to talk about that happened this morning. And he even alluded to Kimi Antonelli, didn't he? Saying, I've been rubbish in qualifying for years, maybe it'll be better, or alluded to maybe it'll be better when Kimi's here. I think it's also worth throwing in here that Nico Rosberg is here working for the TV this weekend. And he seemed to suggest that Hamilton's age is going to slowly have more of an impact on what he can do on the track. It's easy to stand here and say that, isn't it? Maybe he's right, maybe he's not. But Lewis seemed to allude to the fact that he doesn't think he's hit his top form in qualifying for, he even said years, I think, didn't he? He's not talking weeks or months. He's saying, I've not been able to do it, but maybe this new kid who, the new kid on the block who might have stuffed it in the wall yesterday, but might be the one.
Well, essentially, Nico Rosberg never misses an opportunity to stir the pot, particularly when it comes to Lewis Hamilton. But actually, it's funny, I think there is something of a rather serious point in there. Lewis Hamilton has over 100 pole positions, and yet that has never been his ultimate strength. It's not like Charles Leclerc, F1's fastest qualifier, hard to see it these days with Ferrari not being so close to the front. But nevertheless, Lewis Hamilton's great strength was always his racecraft and the way he judged races and these things with the tyres, and that equally is why he's got so many victories and things like that. So he's definitely right. I think Antonelli, we saw that yesterday, his speed was searing. That's what Mercedes have always said that he had. No one could see it publicly until yesterday. Obviously went way over the limit, but it's all about now working back there for Mercedes and for Antonelli. But also interesting comments I thought from George Russell in the press conference, and I interpreted them as digs. He may not have meant them this way, but effectively just saying that Antonelli shun massively put him on the back foot.
I think he meant that. I agree. I think he said that. He was saying, come on, man.
What are you doing with my car? Not giving it to you in Mexico. But the other interesting thing is actually that Mercedes are now right on the limit in terms of spare parts. They're okay at the moment, so the spare parts are for their upgrades, the flaws that we've been talking about and the things that have come recently. But they're okay for now. That George said if he or Lewis were to have another accident, that's it. They've got none. They're relying on them not being made from the factory. So a big day for Antonelli, but it's certainly not been the smooth weekend that he and Mercedes would have wanted, and he had another shot in F2.
Yeah, it's not been great for them at all, is it? I almost think, did they wait to come here because it's Italy, it's Monza, to announce it? We all knew it was going to happen, obviously. Lewis and Ferrari would have been a big story, but they go, actually, we're going to announce there. Then he stacked it in the wall. Then the F2 accident wasn't his fault, but it's getting caught up in that and then finishing 18th. It's not what you want to see from a man who you're saying, we're going to replace our 7-time world champion with you, but he's a young kid, isn't he? And things going to get better, really.
100%. And yeah, I mean, let's see what happens in the Italian Grand Prix tomorrow.